Chord. From the Hill Country in Texas, this is OneRadioNetwork.com. Well, a very pleasant good afternoon to thee. This is Patrick Timpone. Welcome back. We had a good show this morning on soul, mind, body, and how to work with, the whole thing. What do we love to talk about? And now we are going to talk more about physical food with a very interesting lady. By the way, let's invite you in if you have a question or a comment. 888-663-6386. Email Patrick at OneRadioNetwork.com. This lovely lady has been with us before. Her name is Sally K. Norton, and she has written a new book, and it's called Toxic Superfoods. And we talked to her earlier when we first started getting into carnivore about the oxalates, and this is all tying in with these superfoods and vegetables and stuff like that. It's SallyKNorton.com, and you can pre-order the book, and she's going to tell you why you want to do that, because you get a little special good thing like a no oxalate salad. I don't know, she'll give you something. Miss Sally K, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm great. It's nice to be with you, Patrick. Thanks for having me on your show.
Oh, sure. It's fun. It fun.
Is.
So this oxalate thing that you've been working on for a long time, let's throw that out there because it's in the title of the book, right? So folks don't know what oxalates are. We get new people all the time. Why don't you give them the short course? I mean, you've got more stuff like education. To check this out: Bachelor of Science Nutrition from Cornell, Master of Public Health degree from the University of North Carolina. She managed a 5-year National Institute of Health program at UNC. She's read more books and done more studies, and she's just a big egghead. It's good. Eggs are good for you. So I'm glad you're a geek. So tell folks what oxalates are and why we maybe not want to have more than we need.
Yeah, we definitely don't even need them at all. So less is always better with something you don't need. It clutters up your body pretty badly. Oxalates are a set of chemicals that become crystals in the body. And the stuff, as it's getting into your body, it's a free-flowing acid chemical called oxalic acid, which is very reactive and causes oxidative stress, which is the thing that we talk about with cell degeneration and early aging and disease, and all kinds of other cell damage, wrecking the powerhouses that make our energy for the cells. The mitochondria get messed up. The membranes get messed up. So not only does it shorten the lifespan of the cells, it's going to interfere with the cell's ability to do their normal jobs that they do. So it can mess up glands and all kinds of tissues. And then these crystals get stuck in areas in the body where you've got inflammation or the cells are getting old and dying, which happens all the time. You're constantly regenerating new cells. And the old geriatric ones that are dying off become this kind of sticky, sort of dead material that the oxalic acid will precipitate out and become crystals near that area. And then will grow because we keep adding more oxalate to the bloodstream and in the tissues, because we're eating it a lot. And we're eating it a lot because it's in these foods that we like. And it's potatoes and peanuts and almonds and chocolate and spinach and chard,
kale,
and spinach and beet greens. Not so much in kale. Kale is a little bit higher than cabbage, but kale is a cabbage vegetable. And that whole family of vegetables, which has been exploded by human cleverness into hundreds of kinds of vegetables, that whole group is less likely as a species to produce this stuff. You see, the plants are naturally making it. It's not like a pesticide that we're spraying on it. The plants have to make their own pesticides to protect themselves. So they load themselves up with various chemicals so that they don't get eaten into extinction, which would happen if they were completely benign.
That's pretty
busy protecting themselves with oxalic acid.
That's pretty smart of them. It's a survival kind of evolutionary. Don't eat my kids, and I can make more babies and stuff. And these why doesn't the everyday cardiologist or GP doctor that our listeners go to know about this? I mean, come on, Where did you find out if they don't? I mean, how come they don't know about it?
That was one of my big questions when I realized how devastating it was for me to have been eating a diet full of Swiss chard my whole life, and my love of sweet potatoes, it turned out, was ruining me. And I had no idea, despite my lifelong interest in preventing illness and studying nutrition and being a goody two shoes and living clean and good so that I would be productive and happy and active and not in the hospital and not decrepit. So despite all my efforts, I didn't know either. And unfortunately, none of us who are conventionally trained, even alternative healthcare providers, are not trained in this. It's sort of hiding around in the literature. And the sad part is that science is not like this big democracy that covers every topic the same. It's a place of human beings who get fads and interests, and certain clever people get interested in certain things, and then we fund certain things because we believe they're important, and then we start having funding lines for researchers, and so you apply for what's popular. So we've had phases in health and nutrition and medical research since the dawn of the whole enterprise. And the early phase was, well, let's figure out how to deal with infectious diseases, and we developed penicillin and all that, and things, evolved, and eventually we discovered there's a genome, and we should study the genome. And then we were worrying about things nowadays. We're worrying about the microbiome, and we have big problems with, it was the war on cancer in the 70s, and then it was AIDS, and now it's diabetes and obesity and all kinds of other now autoimmune conditions and so on that are getting attention. And so all that to say is that oxalate got swept under the bus. It's been in science since the 1700s. It's an important chemical to chemistry. They use it in chemistry a lot. They use it in the lab a lot. They use it at the medical doctor's office. You use it in cleaners. People in industrial applications use it all the time in photography and production of fabrics and so on. Oxalic acid is well known to science and industry, but not to us, the consumer, who happens to be eating it in our spinach smoothies.
So is this just like a thing that we just want to kind of not really do a lot of, but are you suggesting that these oxalate vegetables and other things, and even the superfoods in your book, have these oxalates that we want to avoid them? Are you really saying just don't go there? Or just a little bit is okay?
A little bit is okay. A little bit is what they think we're eating, actually. This is one reason why it's not being studied, is because the scientists, which are now in the last 30 years, mostly the kidney researchers, because oxalate is famous for wrecking your kidneys because it's the main ingredient in a kidney stone. And the kidney literature has been showing for a long time that the major kidney toxin that leads to all kinds of kidney diseases is oxalate. But that isn't news either, even to urologists. Because, we haven't developed a drug. There's not good ways to test for it. So without a drug and good tests, what's the point?
No. Yeah. If you don't have something to do for it, what are they going to do? Right? There's not going to.
Well, that's part of the mentality. Like, we don't, because there is something to do for it. It's called prevention. But really, since we converted our health system over to a for-profit entity, the idea of prevention has just moved to diagnostic testing, not so much lifestyle and diet, which is hard to teach and time consuming to teach. And the mainstream medical people are frustrated that people don't do exactly what they tell them. So they don't trust us to change our diet. So they prefer to give us a drug.
So animals but animals aren't going to eat chard and stuff like that anyway. It's in the garden. I don't kind of get why the chard would create it. I got lost there for a minute. I mean, they're not out in the wild anyway. Who's going to eat them?
Well, the original out in the wild high oxalate food is sorrel, which there's many forms of sorrels, actually. Sorrel is just an old French term meaning sour. So oxalic acid adds a lot of tartness to vegetables. It's partly why we like them, I think. But the sorrel, there's different kinds of plants that are called sorrel, and they're all high in oxalate. And originally, that's when the chemists were originally manufacturing oxalate, was the juice of sorrel plants back in the late 1700s.
I see. So your new book, and that we're going to tell how folks can pre-order, and let me put the slide up there so they can see it. and it's a nice cover. How Oxalate Overload is Making You Sick and How to Get Better Superfoods, Toxic Superfoods by Sally K. Norton. And we're going to tell you here this morning how you can pre-order and get a little special gift and everything. And if you care to join us with an email, patrick@oneradionetwork.com. Okay, I remember when the whole superfood thing started. I don't know the term, I guess, what was it? Maybe 1980 or so? 90?
Mm-hmm.
The superfood thing started, and one of the big ones is cacao, chocolate. Are you going to tell us that chocolates have these oxalates? Are you going to really do that to us?
I hate to be a bearer of bad news. It's really never something I wanted to do. That's why I worked in academia, so I wouldn't have to argue about what we should be eating. I really don't like telling people what to eat. But
don't like to do that.
I do spend time in the library and try to be truthful about the facts. And so I do want to be a truthful interview and admit, yes, the cacao portion, the cocoa portion of chocolate, that's the dark brown part, is loaded with bioavailable oxalic acid that gets easily into your body and is quite toxic.
Whoa. How's that even possible?
Oh, chocolate's full of all kinds of other nasties too, including lead contamination and theobromide and other things that aren't necessarily that great for us. But, like you said, there was this thing that showed up,
Sure.
This idea of superfoods, which came on the heels quickly because it's the commercial application of a theory that has now been proven wrong, that plant chemicals are antioxidants.
That plant chemicals are antioxidants, and that is a disproven theory. So then the whole superfood thing with the raw juicing and the raw movement and all that, they were just misguided. God love them.
Yes.
Yes. Wow.
Wow, I know.
So
that's much to take.
Greens don't have antioxidants. They don't have good stuff for us. Greens.
They have polyphenols and tannins and these compounds which have good and bad sides, and they're mostly toxic. The tannins, you have to really minimize tannins, but if you get them in just the right dose and you have the right microbiome and you have the right genetics, if all those things are happening, none of which we know what they are specifically, then they will stimulate your body to defend itself against their nastiness. So it does create an antioxidant response in some people under the right conditions, because it's tickling the body and saying, hey, you got to defend yourself here. And the body whips up a self-defense, and we make more glutathione and antioxidant chemicals ourselves in response to these plant chemicals that are inherently toxic.
So that's where the whole antioxidant thing in greens got started. And it's just kind of
a train that's a runaway train downhill. Like you can't stop it because it sells.
It sells. Because everybody likes, I'll just get a superfood smoothie, right? I'll just do a superfood smoothie.
Yep. And this is the last 20 years has been particularly just push. And now like anybody does it. You can be 80, you can be 5. Everybody knows how to do a smoothie.
Yeah, right. So what would be people are using almond milk like crazy, Sally K, so that's not a good one. Almonds are really loaded with oxalates, aren't they?
They really are loaded with bioavailable oxalate that gets into your blood. And it turns out old research is turning out to be true. There's this original study that studied the toxicity of oxalic acid that was published, believe it or not, Patrick, in 1823.
Wow. And
what he showed was the more dilute the solution of oxalate, the more toxic it was. And that's almond milk right there. It's a dilute, a handful, just almond in a whole big jug of it that's mostly water. But that oxalic acid is now so freely dissolved in that water, it is really able to reach your cells and reach your tissues and be very toxic. So even though it has less oxalate than, say, keto bread made of almond flour, which is really intense, the almond milk is quite harmful. And we've seen that. And there was a research report on 3 or 4 cases of children from Pittsburgh, I believe it was, a Pennsylvania hospital, reporting on children damaged by their parents feeding them almond milk.
Almond milk. That's fascinating. Where could it actually be worse because of the dilution thing in the liquid than actually eating the almond itself?
Perhaps. No one's actually done a direct study of this, because what we're doing is we're bridging modern phenomenon, modern research from a couple years ago with research done in 1820s. So people haven't put together this whole pile of thousands and thousands of reports to say, hey, don't eat so much oxalate. And it shows up here and there and here and there, are scattered through the nutrition literature, the medical literature, the case reports, and hardly anybody is listening, because we're on this downhill train that is really going downhill. We're sending our health downhill on this runaway antioxidant madness.
But a good antioxidant is not a bad thing, right? If you can get a good harmless one.
Well, the literature's looking at vitamin E and vitamin C says if you take them chronically, that your lifespan is shortened, because what you're doing is you're turning off the body's own signaling within a cell. The cell actually uses some free radicals that the mitochondria make to tell itself when it needs to be actively producing more glutathione and antioxidants itself. So if you take a lot of antioxidants, you might squelch those natural pro-oxidant chemicals the cells need, to the point where the system isn't defending itself properly. And so you're undoing the body's own defenses by interfering with the body's inherent wisdom.
I think you're onto something. As months and days and years pass on in this field, we're finding that a lot of supplementation it's just not good. I mean, the body doesn't know what the heck's going on, right? Taking extra.
Remember that it was so controversial 25 years ago or so when they came out with the beta carotene studies. They were supplementing beta carotene, and it was terrible for people to supplement beta carotene. It increased the cancer. I can't remember the details, and there was something about smokers either doing worse or better on it. But we were such aghast at the time. Like, how could beta carotene? Because we had just been through 30 years of people using carrot juicing for cancer. Like, we all believed in it. So it was pretty disturbing, and we didn't want to believe that the beta carotene supplements were bad. And so we've been putting our head in the sand about all the information we do have and not looking at it straight on.
And with each passing year, too, more and more folks are really rethinking this whole idea of a lot of vitamin C is good for us, right? Like ascorbic acid.
I wish we would rethink it. And unfortunately, the COVID thing has got more and more messengers saying, take C to not get sick.
Right.
And C works great when you are sick. You probably do need to supplement C when you're sick, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not a good idea as a massive prevention that you do willy-nilly. And like I said, the studies show if you do that, you might live a shorter life, but also it might cause oxalate poisoning.
But isn't sick a detoxification? Because we don't get sick, right? So what does C do when you take it if you had a cold or flu, which I believe is a detox mechanism?
Well, the C supports you have to make more white blood cells when you're sick with an infection.
Okay.
And in order to produce good, high-functioning white blood cells, you need vitamin C. They're the ones who use that vitamin C. So when you have more white cells, you need more C. And also, if you eat more carbs, you need more C. So if you're eating a high-carb diet, you're more likely to get sick, probably. And you definitely need to be thinking about how much vitamin C you're getting. The problem with, C is it comes in these doses that are like 1 gram or 5 grams.
Right,
and people would take that multiple times a day, which is toxic because the C is a pro-oxidant itself, but it also degenerates into oxalate in the body.
And many people have argued this thing for bowel tolerance. Have you heard that one? Just keep taking C until you poop, and then back off a little bit.
Leaking all over yourself.
Yeah, what does that tell you if you take something and you have to poop? I mean, what does that even tell you, right?
Right. Well, and of course, part of it is because the body tries to limit its absorption of the C. And so with a, quote, poor absorption of C, like, please stop telling the body what to do, people. the body has to limit absorption of toxins. And so you end up with this extra C in the colon, and it causes watery diarrhea.
Well, I sure have taken my share of cacao powder over the years in smoothies, which I stopped about 4, 5, 6 months ago when I first heard your first interview. It introduced me to you. Thank you very much. What's the difference between like taking scoops of cacao and just getting organic chocolate that everybody loves? I mean, is there a lot of oxalates in that too, chocolate bar?
And the darker the chocolate, the more oxalates.
Oh, good.
So your white chocolate doesn't really have any because it's not in the fat fraction. Oxalate is technically water soluble, so fats don't have it. It's the powdery, the dark stuff. So the darker, the more oxalate.
So 2 emails here, 2 different people. What are symptoms of oxalate poisoning? I can't believe she's saying this. I eat vegetables all the time. Okay, so what are the main symptoms? And I suspect that people can get over oxalated for a long time before they even feel anything. Is that fair statement?
Like all diseases, it's be silent. But if you know what to look for, you might pick it up, much quicker than your doctor ever would. And that is, if you ever have a urine sample and it comes back with blood in it, that's a sign.
Wow.
If you get cloudy urine, that could be crystally urine where the oxalate crystals are forming in the urine. So if it's a little murky or whitish, that could be crystalluria from oxalates. If you've ever had bladder pain or bladder, jumpiness or, sort of incompetent bladder, that could be oxalates irritating your bladder and making it hard for the sphincter to work properly, and also whipping up mast cells inside your bladder that gives you what feels like a rash. I mean, it's almost like having a rash inside your bladder is quite painful. That's often called interstitial cystitis. If you've had a kidney stone, that is a dead ringer for an oxalate problem. And then so that's like the urinary tract. That's one area where you're likely to see problems. Often that's late stage, because the kidneys are kind of the end of the road, because that's where the oxalate's leaving the body.
Right.
And the kidneys have to concentrate it on the way out. And so they're actually built to handle it. And most of us can handle a lot of oxalate without getting kidney stones. It's just a small, maybe 15% of the population is prone to the kidney stones. I've never had a kidney stone, and I have been peeing out lots of crystalluria for decades and decades. And my kidneys are. So I'm just finishing that. Now, I've been eating low oxalate aware for almost 9 years. I started around Thanksgiving in 2013. And for the first time now, I really consistently don't have cloudy urine anymore, where it used to be most of the time.
Very interesting. Sally
it's nice. I'm moving past the whole process of undoing these crystals out of my tissues. So it took 9 years of being on a diet to be undoing the crystals that had built up in my system. And I'm sure there's still more in my backbone. So if you want to keep going on symptoms, we could talk about the connective tissues or the pain and neurological symptoms or the digestive symptoms. Those are all areas where oxalate is messing with our function.
So it could be a lot of different things that people have no idea. Heartburn,
absolutely,
whatever, constipation, whatever, right?
We're down there affecting individual cells, nerve cells, muscle cells, immune cells. And so whatever function is being interrupted with and seriously interrupted and interfered with is going to be where the symptoms are showing up, or where the inflammation in response to the crystals, like neuroinflammation. You can get mood, anxiety. I've had several people tell me they had severe disabling anxiety for decades and decades, and now they're completely free of it.
Wow. Just getting off oxalates.
Just getting off the chocolate and sweet potatoes and chard.
And sweet potatoes are a real high one. And they used to tell us, remember, that the sweet potatoes were the better. Oh, they're much more nutritious than white potatoes. Eat sweet potatoes. Right?
Yeah, I was told they're low allergy, they're gluten-free. When I figured out I couldn't eat wheat anymore, I converted to sweet potato as my standard starch, and I would eat them for breakfast. And then sometimes, I had them a lot, and the sweet potato did me in. My best friend did me in.
So you ate a lot of them.
Oh, I did. I really loved them.
Yeah.
I regret it.
Would you like to hear a bladder story? You'll like this.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So 4.5 months ago, I'm up in the middle of the night. Somebody from Japan sends me a video of Sally K. Norton being interviewed about oxalates. So I'm sitting there at 2 o'clock in the morning going, what? And I don't know. It was just one of those things. You know, I saw you. You just intuitively know when somebody knows what they're talking about. You've had that experience? Yeah. I said, this girl knows what she's talking about. So I immediately cut out. I looked at all my diet, and you can't believe what I was eating, Sal. I mean, I chard almost every day. Almonds every morning in my life for the last 5 years. Soaked almonds. Spinach, love spinach. Turmeric every day. I mean, I was right on the top of the list of these high oxalate foods, right? So I said, well, I'm done. Okay. So I said, okay, I'm not going to eat any more of those. And I was doing a checklist, what can I eat? Then I figured out that the only thing I could eat was meat. So I turned to a carnivore diet. I did it the one night. I just changed, boom. Probably not supposed to do that. But,
nope.
For years I had this little pain, kind of like just a little energy down in my bladder. I knew it was there for years, right? And I knew I peed more often but I never worried about it. I thought it's going to work itself out. It just will, so it'll be fine, because I don't go in there and try to fix things, because I know oftentimes it causes more problems than it solves, when you try to fix stuff. So I just lived with it for 3 or 4 years. And then I went totally carnivore 2 months after that, or maybe 3 months. My bladder started really hurting one day, and after the next day, it never hurt again. Boom, gone. It has never been, isn't that cool? So I know it was an oxalate thing. It had to be an oxalate. I didn't do anything else. Why is it gone now? It's gone. It's gone.
It's very convincing when you live this. And I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of followers who are severely convinced, like deeply affected by this, deeply convinced, and have trouble talking about it with anyone else because they're not willing to try it out and see how their body shifts under the less toxic diet.
Yeah. So these little crystals get in the bladder and other places, and that was what I was feeling. I didn't know what I was feeling, right?
Probably that and any kind of immune activity trying to manage that. Mm-hmm. Your immune cells are, unfortunately, the hazmat workers who have to go after this mess and clean it up. And they themselves create a little mess as they're trying to clean it up. So they themselves can create symptoms as part of the solution to it, too.
Oh, so the body is trying to figure out why my little bladder was not happy, and that contributes to the problem.
To the symptoms, yes.
To the symptoms.
Right.
Would there have been any other way I would have been able to really heal this without getting off of oxalates?
No. You have to get to the root poisoning, take out the poison, and then, whoa, your body's happily doing its business of making you well again.
Sally, stay right there. We're going to take a break. We're going to sell you a product here, or promote it anyway, selling you, only if you want to buy it. It's pine pollen from elk velvet antler, from mill pollen from the trees and the birds and the bees. And then we're going to be back, and we're going to ask Sally about giving us some more of these superfoods, the ones that maybe we want to quit eating, and so we'll do it here. Say, how come that's not working? Okay.
The first supplement I like to take in the morning, right after I wake up, is Pine Pollen Pure Potency, or P4. This is Surthrival's flagship testosterone and androgen support formula. It's made with the pollen of pine trees, which is rich in testosterone, androstenedione, DHEA, and a bunch of plant sterols. These are all substances, phytochemicals, that support the body's natural androgens, or male hormones. Of course, men and women are using this product, but usually it's men in andropause, men after age 40 whose testosterone production has started to decline. Many of Surthrival's supplements can be taken any time of day, but Pine Pollen Pure Potency, it's important that you take at very specific times of the day. Now, it can be taken once, twice, or 3 times, depending on how much you want to supplement yourself with the phytoandrogens found in it. But the key is taking it at morning, right upon waking, midday or noon, and then again right before bed. So once, twice, or 3 times a day, but always at those times. And that's because that's when your body's naturally producing its own testosterone. And all we want to do is amplify that sine wave. We don't want to start to take testosterone at a time where our body's purged it from the bloodstream. Instead, we want to take it at a time where those levels are already spiking and we're just subtly helping to increase them. This product tastes fantastic. I think of it like an orange creamsicle, and that's because in addition to that subtle pine flavor, there's a little bit of orange peel, Tahitian vanilla bean, cloves, and then a little bit of maple syrup just to give it this nice kind of sweet orange flavor. So it's really delicious and easy to take. So if you're looking to increase your testosterone or androgen levels and you want an alternative to pharmaceutical testosterone replacement therapies, there's nothing that does it better than pine pollen pure potency.
You betcha, baby. I think you'll really like it. It's a wonderful product from Surthrival, and it's just one of the many products that they have. One of our faves that we're beginning to do in the morning now is this colostrum. I haven't quite got around to being able to do a steak in the morning, but bacon works pretty good. But anyway, colostrum is fun. My body likes that, and I seem to do really well with it. But you can get a good colostrum at Surthrival, and then elk velvet antler is another little product that helps to libido, things like that. So it's a great company, and stop by and see them and see what they have for you. If I can hit the right button here, I can do the next one, but it doesn't want to work. One of our favorite things ever is to get in the relaxed far infrared sauna, and I do this every night of my life, and not what I do is you shouldn't do what I do because I'm crazy. You could get crazy too, and then God knows your husband may leave you, or wife. But anyway, these are really nice saunas, really wonderful saunas. They're incredibly low electromagnetic fields. There's no RFs. There's a little bit of magnetic, but whenever there's a motor, you have some magnetic energy, but it's no more than when you're driving your car. So if magnetic energy was going to kill you, you'd be dead because you're driving your car. Because I've got these meters and I check my cars. Here's a fun fellow we talked to about the sauna. Previously with Dr. Thomas Rau, the Pericles Medical Clinic in Switzerland. Their specialty is detoxification. We asked him about far infrared saunas.
The far infrared sauna goes much deeper into the skin subcutaneously. It has its maximum about 4 to 5 centimeters below the skin surface.
You've actually measured materials in the sweat, and you've proven this.
Yes, the patients after a week doing this every day, half an hour or 45 minutes, they react quite much with sweat. Then you can collect this sweat, then you measure this, and then you find how much they detoxify with the heavy metals. It's really amazing.
It really is kind of amazing. And we have a terrific video on our sauna landing page with Dr. Rhonda Patrick. And she's talking all about the arteries and the veins and the hearts and everything, and your heart, and how it's a benefit to get the far infrared sauna. So there's a lot more going on than just a detoxification. The only way you can get the price is to email moi, Patrick at oneradionetwork.com. Patrick at oneradionetwork.com. Tell me where you live, and I'll give you the delivered price, and we ship them all over the world, everywhere. I think the only place we can't do it, somehow Germany doesn't want them in. I don't know what the Germans got against sweating, but you have to talk to Andrea Merkel, baby, or whatever, who was ever in charge at the time. I don't know. Anyway, just email me, and we'll hook you up, okay? Oh, that didn't seem to work. Oh, I'll do the right button. I know I can do the right button when I try.
From the Hill Country in Texas, broadcasting worldwide, this is OneRadioNetwork.com.
We're with Sally K. Norton. You see her book, Toxic Superfoods. Okay, so what are some other superfoods that we have been eating, for the last 20 years that are just not good and full of oxalates? What are some of the other big ones on the list? Big ones.
Well, buckwheat is a big one. So
Buckwheat.
people
Oh,
go,
come on. Buckwheat.
yeah,
is
I
great.
know, right? It can be your little favorite pet secret love. Some people really like it. It's got a very strong flavor. It makes these really nice soba noodles that the Japanese like.
Yep.
And it sneaks into other things too. Buckwheat is really high. It's in the same family with rhubarb, and these things are, rhubarb is off the charts, as is really the worst one in terms of amount is Swiss chard and beet greens, which is basically the same. Yeah.
Swiss
and then there's
chard
things
and
like
beet
star fruit, which is a medical food that's considered a great superfood in Asia and South America. Here it's just considered kind of a cool garnish, but the raspberries aren't so great, especially the blackberries. They're not so good. Let's see. The nuts generally are terrible. So cashews, almonds, peanuts, those are the worst ones. And
So,
then there's a few spices like turmeric.
turmeric is full. So what other vegetables? I mean, to do regular run-of-the-mill like broccoli and lettuce and stuff like that, do they have oxalates in them?
The lettuce is really, really low.
Oh, cool.
You can consider lettuce to be almost zero. And cabbage is the same way, just regular head cabbage is very low. And broccoli is one of those in the same family with cabbage, and it's a little bit more medium. So in the beginning of changing your diet, you don't have to worry about broccoli so much. If you're trying to get really low later on, you don't need to do that quickly. You can boil the broccoli and lower the oxalate in it. If you boil it, the tests, I'll boil it like 12 minutes, which you couldn't really do because you would have soup. That 3-minute boils and then it starts to fall apart. But that still leaches out some of the oxalic acid into the cooking water. So you throw out the water and eat the broccoli. It's not cooking, it's not heat that's changing anything. The heat doesn't affect oxalate much unless you're like, fire heat, like 400-degree heat, which you don't do in the kitchen. But boiling can sometimes leach it out in a few vegetables. It doesn't work so well with asparagus, but asparagus is low enough that if you eat a sort of modest portion, you can do that as well. So, yeah.
So if we're just getting a few oxalates, it appears can we assume that in a low oxalate environment, if you're careful, the body gets rid of them, Sally, as they go? Does get rid of them?
Yes. There's basically 3 big research studies that back the theory of how this works in terms of how much you can have that creates the deposits in the body and how to undo the deposits. So there's something called a trigger dose, which is about 1.5 ounces of chocolate. A trigger dose elevates oxalate levels in the blood enough to start new deposits in the body. And then there's a maintenance dose, which isn't well defined, but it's less than a trigger dose, which might be 0.5 ounce of chocolate, a few French fries, a peanut butter cup, something. And that maintains the deposits that are in the body. But if you quit eating them below those levels or don't ever do trigger doses again and have 3 or 4 or 5 days with very little oxalate, then the body's like, oh, okay, winter time. Winter, traditionally in the old days, didn't have a lot of produce going on in it and didn't have a lot of nuts. It was hunting and fishing was the primary diet. So every year in more hunter-gatherer days, sort of real paleo days, you'd have a winter season where you weren't eating oxalates at all. And the body's like, oh, I know. This is my time to clean up from all that mess from the summer.
Yeah.
So, but you haven't had winter because nobody eats pure meat anymore. Everyone's afraid of eating meat. And so you've built up this maintenance, the trigger mess in your tissues, your thyroid gland, your bones, your joints, you name it. And now when you go into winter, a low oxalate diet is what I call the winter diet, where the body wants to remove the oxalates. But it's kind of a toxic process. And the amount that you've got to remove in modern times is dangerous, actually. Yeah. You're actually holding a dangerous toxic load of oxalate in your body.
So let's go through that trigger dose again. So when I was doing, and many people doing a lot of cacao in their smoothies, right? You do 2 or 3 tablespoons, a lot, because more is better. What's that trigger dose do to the body? What goes on?
It's elevating the concentration of oxalate in the blood.
Right.
Making enough available that it's sticking to those dead, dying, inflamed, infected areas of the body.
Whoa, that's not good.
No.
That's not good. And these oxalates are little crystals kind of that are cutting as well? Are they actually?
Once they form crystals, yes. The foods, when you eat them, have both the crystals and the acid. So the acid is a molecule that's called an ion, has a charge on it. So it's a tiny molecule, has 2 little carbons and 4 oxygens. And that little tiny molecule just floats into the body on the water, because when you're digesting your food, there's these little gaps between the cells of natural gaps between the cells of the digestive tract where water flows in. And they're hooked together by this Velcro like protein. Each cell is one side of the Velcro. That's how the cells form this nice sheet of epithelial tissue, is these little Velcro hooks hold all the cells together. So they're hooking to each other.
Wow.
But Velcro, if you can picture Velcro, there's water could flow right through Velcro, right? Because there's space in it. So the water flows in, so does the acid. The oxalic acid comes in on that water and other minerals coming into the body. That stuff is the acid that's now free-flowing and grabbing. What it does is it's a chelator of minerals. So it'll grab calcium, magnesium, iron, and so on. And it starts connecting with magnesium and calcium. And then when it's got debris around, like broken cells, that triggers it to come into crystal form. So it changes from a molecule to a set of molecules that set up a crystal inside your tissues. So inside your tissues, your teeth, your jaws, your sinus glands, your whatever, you are forming crystals in place all over. These are toxic nanocrystals that grow to become microcrystals. And filling up your body with toxic nano and microcrystals is a terrible idea. When it happens in your lungs with other particles, we call it asbestosis. When you're breathing these little particles and they get stuck in your lung, that creates a chronic inflammatory disease, which ruins your lungs. But you're not breathing in oxalate, although you can, because it is in the air, by the way. It's in polluted air. Oxalic acid is one of those acids that make acid rain and make air polluted. But when you're eating it, the acid flows into your bloodstream, and then it's in the body where it's stealing minerals from your body and then becoming crystals. So the crystals represent not just the toxicity that's harmful to tissues, that is sharp, that the immune cells have to sequester and deal with. It's also sucking minerals, nutritional minerals, and kind of turning them bad into this toxic calcium oxalate.
How long you've been an oxalate girl looking at this thing? How long?
I was first recognizing I needed to learn about oxalates in 2009. And then my big revelation happened in 2013. And by early 2014, I was spending every Sunday at the medical library studying.
Wow. Amazing. Sally K. Norton is with us. If you'd like to be on the show, 888-663-6386. Email Patrick at oneradionetwork.com. So just after 45 minutes, newly reintroduced to this whole oxalate thing, it sounds to me like, why would we want to eat any oxalates? I mean, what's the point? Are there foods that have oxalates that if we don't eat them, we're going to be missing out on something?
Absolutely not. There is nothing about these foods that have the oxalate in them that are necessary. There's no way it's critical to human health to eat this toxin or to eat the other things in those foods. You can get nutrients from safer foods that are low in oxalate. There's lots of produce if you believe that you need produce. And a lot of people are saying, look, human beings spent lots of times in history where they could get by just eating meat. You see that like in Alaska and in the historical record that certain subpopulations live principally a carnivore diet, and they do very well on that. So there's not really good evidence that in any way that you require even fiber, let alone vegetables. But you can eat a vegetable-rich diet. You can even stay vegetarian and avoid oxalates, because there's plenty of
if you wanted to, right? If you wanted to,
if you believe,
yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good place to start, because you won't go too low too fast. If you jump from cacao spinach smoothies to carnivore, you're making such an abrupt change. You're telling the body loud and clear, here's your chance, here's your window, start clearing
now. Get out now.
And that's not good, because that turns on inflammation that can create mast cell activation syndrome. It can create food allergies. It can even promote cancer to turn on your immune system to get rid of this mess. The crystals promote cancer in breasts especially.
Yeah. Here's an email from Randy. I've been carnivore about the same time as Patrick. I started when he did. Oh, sure. Don't you want to do what I do, kids, because you're getting in trouble. I'm crazy. Anyway, and he said, I just started getting some little itchy bumps on my ankles, and they just itch, and I don't know where they come from. Could this be oxalates coming out of my body?
That sounds classic.
Classic? Is that classic oxalate?
Yes. Some kind of skin reaction that's sometimes itchy. Some people it's not. Mine were not itchy. I had a lot of peeling skin, especially on my feet. Wow. Feet are a common place to have issues. So it's not surprising that it's his ankles, because it seems like eyes and feet and hands and fingers are very common, as our neck and the shoulder blades and shoulders, common spots, carpal tunnel. So yeah, the skin, usually there's some kind of skin response in the years following a change to a low oxalate diet. So
they will maybe are they choosing to come out in the skin, the largest organ?
Yeah, the largest organ of detox and excretion is the skin. Yeah. And I consider it a superpower. This is one of my things. Like, the body gets rid of oxalate through urine. It gets rid of oxalate through feces too.
Sure, it must. Right?
That talent turns it up when your kidneys are stressed and you're acidic. It turns up that power, so you can get gritty stools, burning rectum, hemorrhoids. These can all be responses to getting rid of it. And then there's the skin. And some people are really good at the skin excretion of oxalate, pushing out these crystals right to the surface because they're near the surface is brilliant, rather than having to dissolve it down, put it back in the bloodstream, and make your poor kidneys deal with it. So those of you who can get it out through the skin, hallelujah, that's great.
I that's what I attribute my very low. The bladder thing's been the only thing, and I went cold turkey, boom, from oxalate heavy to carnivore in one day. But I've been doing saunas for 10 years, so maybe I've been just getting them out, ongoing.
I'm sure it's been helping. I really think sauna is so important. It helps to correct the inflammation in the body. It triggers all kinds of important healing responses. I try to get all my clients doing sauna as often as they can.
Yeah. This is from Sophie. Is there any evidence that high oxalate in the body could be attributed to cancer?
There is 2 studies that show that oxalic acid and another one that shows oxalate crystals in the breast both cause breast cancer.
Wow. In the breast?
In the breast. There's this transition that happens as the immune cells try to go after the crystals that turn normal breast cells into cancer cells, and also turn them into bone cells where you get these calcium deposits. So you start off with calcium oxalate deposits, then the body tries to get rid of those and often succeeds, but the process of getting rid of the oxalate deposits creates another kind of calcification that's associated with a very aggressive kind of breast cancer.
Oh. Is there any substance somebody wants to know, an emailer, that help get oxalates out of the body? Any supplements?
Calcium is the binder. Yeah. Calcium is a binder. It helps to trigger the body, tell the body it can get rid of it. It helps the colon get rid of oxalate. So if there's calcium there to catch it, calcium and oxalate love each other. When there's lots of calcium around, it really helps the body get rid of the oxalate. And that's the citrate is the other one. So you can buy calcium in a calcium citrate form, and then you get both. You get the benefit of citrate. Magnesium citrate is helpful. Potassium citrate is helpful. Those are all good. It helps to restore the minerals that are being lost, both in the process of oxalate getting in and in the process of oxalate getting out. You continue to lose minerals. So those are the basic ones for helping your body.
Here's a little plug for a product that we've been using for years, Sally, and it's from real pearl, and it's heavy calcium, and it's called Pearlcium, and you can take it internally, and it's been proven that it doesn't end up in your arteries, but it actually goes in your bones. Real calcium from a once living source. Pretty cool, huh? That's the kind of calcium we recommend. Isn't that cool? Yeah. You can brush your teeth with it, too.
And there is good research showing that calcium supplements do not calcify your arteries. They don't. Calcium supplements help you live longer and with less illness.
So even the stuff made in a lab in the pills, you're saying they don't end up in your arteries?
Yes.
Cool. Very good.
Oxalate helps to turn your artery cells, the muscle cells in the arteries. It does the same thing that it's doing in the breast, where it's turning normal breast cells into cancer cells. and into bone cells. Well, in the arteries, oxalate can mess up the way the cells read their, the way they function, and they can become bone producing cells. That's how you create calcification in the arteries, is you damage your arteries, and the cells get confused about what kind of cell they are. It's not the calcium sticking to your arteries. It's because you've damaged your arteries that they're now gone rogue, and they're pretending they're bone cells.
Then the cholesterol and the calcium comes in to patch it up?
Yeah, the cholesterol is like a Band-Aid, or, Bactine. It helps to deal with the inflammatory problem and the fundamental tissue injury. Calcium, or the oxalate, is the cholesterol is helping as a Band-Aid, and oxalate sticks to areas where you've got injury. So you'll see this all together, and oxalate gets mixed up with other problems because it's the problem areas that can't defend themselves from the oxalate.
Oh, I see. Because the weakened part of the system, that's where these things can gather and have a party and build condominiums.
Right. And that's why it looks so different in every person, because every person's got vulnerabilities and situation that's unique to them. Sure.
Of course. Yeah, of course. We recently recently saw a great piece of work from Zoe Harcum. You know Zoe? And,
sure.
It's all about fiber, and we're going to do a show with her on fiber. And it sure looks like fiber, we don't need it. I mean, come on. I mean, it's like,
fiber indiscriminately feeds whatever's growing in the gut. And so if you got the wrong things growing, you're just promoting that dysbiosis with fiber, whereas the gut cells try to garden the microbiome, and they'll feed them little bits of mucus and things to try to control who's growing in the gut. The body, we keep thinking we can tell the body how to be healthy.
Right.
He already knows how to do it.
That's right. We want to control it, right? We got control issues.
Me too.
It's like, okay. But I mean, fruits and vegetables and rice and everything's got fiber in it.
Yeah. Yep. But, some fiber is worse than others. And bran, by the way, which is a classic fiber from the 1980s,
right,
is very high in oxalate. So the whole grain thing got us in trouble with more fiber that's hard to digest and is a little tough on your system and may produce dysbiosis. But the oxalate in the fiber also produces dysbiosis. So, oxalate is toxic in many ways, not just to you, but to the bacteria that you like in your gut.
So the whole cereal industry promoting all this, these cereals are full of oxalates as well as bran that we don't need, right? Right. Yeah, Zoe talked about, she dug deep to a lot of this research, and a lot of it was most of it was funded by Kellogg's and all the rest of it.
Well, and the idea about bran came on way before Kellogg's. There was a whole fad in the early 1800s of eating bran, and that's where the Graham flour came from. This guy named Graham tried to live on just bran.
Oh.
Yeah. And the guy who was the uncle of Louisa May Alcott tried to live on just bran. He was Dr. Alcott, and his brother was the dad of Louisa May Alcott. She wrote Little Women. And so there was this whole elite crew that were holier than thou who were into bran and vegetarianism and stuff. So it's been morally superior to live on sawdust for a long time.
Yeah. I think it kind of tricks people into believing, because when you eat a lot of fiber, you have to go to the bathroom a lot. And they think if they're going to the bathroom a lot, then they're healthier. Because, oh man, I'm pooping 2 or 3 times a day. This is great. I'm doing good. But why is it coming out if you need it? I mean, that's what I start thinking about after.
You realize that most of the bulk of your stool is dead bacteria?
Just dead bacteria.
Is bacteria, the huge bulk of your stool. So the more bacteria, the bigger your stool. And you're feeding that extra bacteria, that overgrowth, that intestinal overgrowth with fiber and bran.
So bacteria that you don't need, you say, that's what's coming out?
That's part of what's bulking up the stools. In addition to the water absorbing power of the fiber is getting a lot of credit. It's some of it, but some of it is just that you have this, you got to poop more to get rid of this excess, populations of bacteria.
Yeah. Do you think it's true, as many of the carnivore gurus out there, and there's a lot of them, we've interviewed a lot of them, they just say that these vegetables ferment and they're just not, We just don't even need them. Even oxalates, forget about oxalates. We don't even need them if they were clean. Do you think that's possible?
Well, I have personally been living without vegetables except for occasional squash, occasional like fruity vegetables, squash and red peppers and, some pickles and capers. But I haven't been eating frank vegetables for 3.5 years. And
you don't miss it?
I know. I used to be a very good vegetable eater and huge, like 3 vegetables, a salad, and an entree, like every night. No matter how much I worked, I would do that every night and take soups with vegetables for lunch and even eat sweet potatoes for breakfast. Like I was into it for a long, long time. And now I don't.
After 3.5 years of no vegetables, what have you noticed? Can you notice things you say, well, I'm really doing better without them, or I have no difference? So what's your experience with that?
Yeah, less bloating and just generally feel better. And I think the main advantage of not eating a lot of vegetables and getting off the oxalate, this combination is especially helpful for just getting off the oxalate will help this. But being able to hear your body tell you, hey, I don't want that. Don't feed me that anymore.
Right.
You can have a better relationship with your body and find out what's working well for you and what isn't. I think there's a lot of noise in the system when you're toxic. And you
I couldn't agree more. I think, and that's well said the way you did it. My little gut has never been quieter in the last 4 months from going total meat-based. Never been quieter. And you can feel anything that is not quite right. Anything, right? Because you're quiet all the time. And I love the way you said that. There's a lot of noise going on, and you can't hear anything because there's a lot of noise going on. But I don't even... I mean, you don't have to fart. Excuse my French. You don't bloat. You're just quiet. You eat and okay. Well, that was good. And then you work, and then you eat when you get hungry again. Yeah, I just don't see anything unless aliens drop carnivore bombs on us or something, and that I'd ever go back to eating the way I was. And I've only been 4 months.
Yeah. It's hard to convey that to someone who hasn't. It seems so radical to cut out vegetables. Vegetables are our saviors, Patrick. You must toe the line. Vegetables are our saviors. What is the matter with you?
I know. 5 fruits and vegetables a day, right? That's what they say. Okay, here's one. I've been drinking almond milk alone and with smoothies for years. I will stop, but for what it has done, I will stop. But what has it done to my body? ? I'm healthy with no problems, never get colds. So CC says, well, what's up? Should I just quit? I think she's just going to quit.
Good. Oh, it's so nice to know that your listeners are so proactive and able to change their minds and experiment with things. I really congratulate people who can do that. And one thing to look for, I would go get a bone density scan to see how your bone minerals are doing, because the oxalate is sucking the minerals out of your bones and creating osteopenia. You can think back if you've had a history of sinus infections or yeast infections or things like that are kind of like repetitive little annoying infections. Those are signs of damage to the immune system, which will get better. So there may be some signs that the thyroid gland gets messed up with oxalate. So if you have a little wobbly thyroid or low hormones, those can all be oxalate related.
It's an interesting experiment that people can do without hurting themselves, right?
Not eating chocolate. I mean, that can't hurt you.
Yeah. I don't know.
It might cause you to get a counseling session.
Well, you might have to go to therapy, right? I can't eat chocolate.
But the thing is, you can actually have a little bit of chocolate. It's actually therapeutic to keep a little oxalate in the diet. So if you can live without Swiss chard, start there. If you live without keto almond bread, definitely start there. And wait on the chocolate for later and just be reasonable. Don't eat an entire bar.
Oh, that's another thing I was doing. I just thought about. I was doing these almond tortillas every day. I was almond crazy. I have this crazy almond. Wow.
Well, we need to keep checking in every year. We'll do an annual Patrick check-in because I have a feeling in year 3, you're going to be sick with some oxalate detox.
Oh, come on. No, I'm not going to buy into that. No, I'm not doing
Okay.
I'm not going
Hopefully not, because it would be maybe an N of 1 study about how sauna and other things that you're doing have had some degree of protective effect. You'd make a wonderful research study. So let's sign up your carcass for science, just in case somebody hits you with a truck.
I'm in. Okay, this is from Gloria. Oh no, I love to bake potatoes. Aren't any potatoes good for us?
If you could switch to like the little new skin, the little thin skin red potatoes that are boiling potatoes, those are a little bit lower in oxalate. So you can have kind of a normal serving of them and get away with it, especially in the beginning. The problem with baked potatoes is they're not only higher in oxalate, but they're huge and we eat big portions of them.
Yeah.
And they're turned into chips and fries. And it's very high in that bioavailable form of the oxalic acid that chips and fries are. So, yeah.
When you say the little red potatoes, are they do have oxalates, just they're one of the lowest?
They're much lower than the baking potatoes, right?
But you wouldn't eat them a couple times a week or anything?
Well, it depends on what else you're eating. Because there's wiggle room for a little bit of oxalate in your diet. So if you're not eating, like carnivore wants a half cup of boiled potatoes, you could probably do that every day. And it might be good. Because if you keep a little oxalate in the diet, your body is less eager to pull it out of your thyroid gland and your bones and make you sick on the getting rid of it part. Because we don't want to dump too much of this stuff back in your bloodstream too fast. So keeping a little bit of potatoes or a bite of chocolate in dinner or maybe a half cup of beets or something, or some carrots. These are strategies for not being zero oxalate in the diet and maybe trying to convince the body to be a little gentle in the clean out process.
I like to experiment. So after not any grains, I did about 3 scoops of wild rice last night just for fun. So I'm going to see what it does, right? I had fish, wild rice. And it felt like I had a bomb in my stomach until like 2 a.m. Just wild rice. I mean, come on. What's up with that?
What's a scoop? How much was that?
Well, I think a scoop would be like a tablespoon, so maybe 3 tablespoons.
Just like barely a quarter cup.
Yeah, well, cooked up, it fluffs up a lot, and I had a pretty good hit of it.
Dried. Okay,
yeah,
so
dried.
You had like a cup of rice.
Yeah, like a cup of wild rice. Wild rice is more of a seed, isn't it? More of a seed, so I don't know.
The seeds, wild rice is kind of highish in oxalate. I don't know if there's been many tests of it, though.
My body didn't like it.
Seeds, generally, many foods we eat are seeds. The grains are seeds, the beans are seeds, the spices are seeds. And like you said earlier, these are the plant babies. They're well defended, and that defense includes oxalic acid.
Don't eat my grandchildren. Don't do it.
My grandchildren.
Don't eat my grandchildren.
You will pay.
So if you could, you will pay and own nothing. So if you want to do potatoes, it'd be the little red ones are the best, right? The little red ones.
Yeah, or probably the other new skin potatoes are probably low. There just hasn't been enough research. There's many varieties of potatoes, and it would take a tremendous amount of interest and money to do that kind of detailed research. So keep the portions modest and go with the little red skin ones and fill up on a nice chunk of roast beef.
Do you think there's any benefit, because I've done very little in 4 months, over 4 months now, of having some carbs just for fun, like honey, or do you think the body likes a little bit of carbs?
Yes.
Yeah.
But especially amongst us who have been oxalate damaged. The oxalic acid is sitting on enzymes that produce ATP in cells and sitting on enzymes that help us produce muscle glycogen, sitting on enzymes that help us produce blood sugar. So me especially, but many of my clients do better with a big load of carbs a couple nights a week with dinner. We just have much more energy. We sleep much better because it's easier for us to keep our blood sugar even. And I have very low insulin levels. When I get mine tested, it's like 1.
Yeah.
So
A1C,
and that's thanks to eating mostly carnivore diet and being able to eat 2 meals a day and not being hooked on unhooking from carbs. And now that I'm completely unhooked, I can have a pile of what I consider now a pile of carbs, which is still less than most people, right? But I can do that and feel better, sleep better, have more energy, and not feel hungry and not feel carb addicted. That's a great achievement. And that combination of cleaning up the carbs and getting rid of the oxalate but you still need support so you can keep your blood sugar even. So if your body does better on some carbs, believe your body. Do not sign up for diet rules and diet clubs.
Yeah, I mean, and I was saying the other day, like Woody Allen, I don't want to belong to a club that'll let me in. So I don't want to be a carnivore. If it'll let me into the club, I don't want to be it because, no, I understand what you're saying. And I get emails all the time, Sally. Well, if I do carnivore, can I do that? Well, yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
You're not joining a club. You don't have a secret handshake or anything. Don't worry about it. But these carnivore gurus out there, they get a little crazy, and they're fun. I understand.
Well, they're trying to get people over the hump of the addiction, I think. And so they get these very strict ideas, like you have to do this challenge and this and that. And that gives people the motivation to be part of something exciting, to get over the pretzels and the potato chips and whatever other junk is ruining their diets. So
nothing wrong with
I can understand it, but I've always been one about working with an individual and helping them find a path that's going to work for them.
Right. So if animal foods don't have oxalates?
They don't. Not really. Not worth worrying about.
Mm-hmm. You should write a book on bacon. I think we could just live on bacon. I mean, that's my favorite. Something about bacon. I could eat 3 or 4 pieces of bacon. I feel like I've just chewed on God or something. It's like, what?
How do you stop after 3 or 4 pieces?
Well, I don't know. We have a farmer's market here, Sally, where it's a regenerative farm, and they're feeding the pigs all vegetarian diet. They get the food from.
Oh, not whey, because some classic way to raise pigs is to give them the side effects of cheese making and give them some whey.
I don't know what else, but they don't give them any grains or corn or.
No, corn is nice. None of the GMO grains. That's really nice.
Yeah. Boy, it's great. It's really great bacon.
I do love pork too. I get whole pigs. I try to get them scalded so that I can have the head, and because the head is bacon with skin on it, it is delicious.
Wow, you do the whole pig thing? You're really into it, girl.
I do well on pork, although right now I'm taking a little break from it and eating primarily a seafood diet to see how my body's doing on that.
Well, I was going to ask you about seafood. I like seafood. I feel good when I do it. You think we need it? Do you think there's any issues with it?
Well, I definitely think you have to be careful about your selection. There's the bigger the fish, the more mercury. People don't realize that swordfish is just totally inedible and full of mercury, and it's still available in many fish stores. So you have to. It's scary, the swordfish thing. But so if you can use small fish, really little fish, and many of the shellfish are very low in mercury and quite safe to eat. Oysters are incredibly nutritious and considered very low and safe in toxins. Yeah. So you have to be lucky enough to live in an area where you have good fishmongers who get fish in every day and get in there and talk to them about the quality of the fish and buy really nice, good fish and treat yourself. It's fantastic. I think some people really need the fish omega fatty acids, omega-3 fatty acids to feel good mentally, to have less anxiety and bipolar and whatever, that their general happiness depends on getting enough of those kinds of fats.
That's mainly, the highest one there is salmon, right?
Salmon, mackerel, sardines. Sardines will do it. I mean, the poor man's brain food is sardines, and you can eat them for breakfast. My husband and I have been eating sardines for breakfast for 25 years.
Oh, I'm going to try that. See, I've been looking for things for breakfast, so I don't know. I just can't get into a steak at 7 in the morning. I don't know why. It's just not working for me, I look at it and say, no, I don't want that,
Yeah, right. Listen to yourself. Yeah.
I think sometimes Mr. Tummy knows, I don't think we'll do. So I've been doing colostrum, but I want to try some sardines for breakfast. That'd be good. How about honey? Honey, what do we know about honey?
Honey,
that's considered a superfood, though, really, isn't it, too?
Some people really like honey and believe in it. I'm a person, which is common with us with oxalate poisoning, is I have a lot of allergies, and honey is a big wad of pollen. So it doesn't agree with people who can't handle a lot of pollen, in my opinion. Some people think it helps you with allergies. It never did for me. Honey has a little bit of oxalate in it, but not too much to be worried about it. So, again, it's an individual thing. It's very high in fructose, which concerns me that, fructose is on the hit list for certain people are really anti-fructose. So I don't know. I don't recommend honey. I like organic sugar and
Rather, we just do a little sugar, just do beet
yeah,
sugar.
I believe in real sugar, not fake sugars. All the fake sugars, forget that. You're triggering the same mechanisms in the body that create carb addiction anyway. So you might as well just, if you need the carbs, then get honest about it. If you want a dessert, be honest about it. Make portions reasonable. Make it a special occasion. Don't pretend that you can have dessert-like special occasion foods every day because you're now using fake sugar.
Yeah. So then I would, I guess, imagine then you're not a fan of beet sugar because there would be oxalates in beet sugar, right?
Well, sugar is very highly purified. So there is some oxalate in sugar, actually. So I forget how much, but I'm guessing a rounded half cup might have even as much as 20 milligrams of sugar, depending on how much refinement. I think the more refined it is, the less oxalate in it.
So that would be just good old CNH sugar, pure cane sugar from Hawaii. It would probably be
what organic is really important with sugar. And it really is important with all foods, but it's surprisingly important with sugar. If you're going to use sugar, I like coconut sugar, but always organic.
So
turbinado, any of that.
Coconut sugar is good, huh? You like?
I think so. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And I think it has some nice trace elements in it as well.
What about coconut milk?
Coconut milk is great.
Is it?
If we trust the canning process,
it's right. We can get fresh ones.
Been around a long
time. Coconut milk.
Yeah, you can get it fresh.
Fresh and organic. Well, it's been pasteurized. It's been a thing. Yeah.
I use coconut milk a lot in my recipes. I have a recipe book on my website, and you'll see I use it a lot because I'm trying to provide recipes that are dairy-free, egg-free, gluten-free, soy-free, so that no matter what your issues are, you can find good options for low oxalate eating, including if you love vegetables. There's plenty of those, and I have, on my site, you can get probably 100 vegetable recipes that are low oxalate.
So I think, did I hear you say, or do you like the zucchini squash is pretty good, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, it's moderately low in oxalate, so you can keep that around.
Yeah, in case you want a little. Here's
and
one.
Winter squashes are even lower.
Oh,
the butternut, the spaghetti squash, kaboka, acorn, those are all even lower.
Here is Charmine. Does seaweed have a lot of mercury in it? Is it a good idea to consume seaweed, chlorella, spirulina, these superfoods? Is that in your book?
I didn't talk about them very much. They're not very high in oxalate, except some of the seaweeds are higher than others. They haven't all been tested. We don't have really thorough testing for these more what would be considered exotic foods in this country. They're not a priority food, so they're not a priority to be tested in terms of oxalate. I also have not studied if the sea plants collect heavy metals or not, so I can't answer that.
We don't know.
Mm-mm.
Do we know if these things like spirulina and all those are even good for us? I mean, are we still eating these things sometimes and we don't know?
Well, I know they're really high in purines. So if people have gout and are told they have to be on a purine controlled diet, you wouldn't want them for sure because they're bad for gout patients in theory. Mm-hmm. I haven't looked at them particularly, but the same kind of thing applies where we keep thinking these compounds have antioxidant effects, but the effect is really just about telling the body to get with it, do it themselves.
I guess they could have a lot of different minerals and stuff that we like seaweed.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, that's one reason why we like sea salt, because it has trace minerals in it, right? And the ancient salts are better because it doesn't have the modern plastics and mercury in it.
Modern plastic, yeah.
Yeah.
Here is one from Frank. What about, you've not mentioned dairy, what about raw milk, goat's milk, cow's milk, things like that? Good for us? ?
Calcium and the other nutrients in milk are incredibly protective against oxalate poisoning and helps you recover from it. So if your body gets along with raw milk, A2 milk, and butter and cream, live it up and enjoy it. And I would recommend, though, because if you've had a high oxalate diet in the past and now you're low oxalate and you're eating milk, the chances of you developing a food sensitivity and tolerance go up with this oxalate inflammation post low oxalate. So I would put it on a rotational schedule and take 2-3 days off every week of dairy just to make sure you don't become intolerant to it, or to try to never be. Who wants to be allergic to heavy cream? And no, you don't.
No, you don't want to do that. And
Don't do
butter?
that.
You owe me.
No, I live on butter. I'm a little sensitive to milk, so we get raw A2 cream and milk here, but I don't touch it. I stick with butter and cheese.
Yeah, and you like cheese?
Yeah, and for those of us who are a little bit reactive to dairy, or seem to be, it's hard to tell with dairy because you're probably reacting to other things, and dairy is this thing that when you eat it, the body speaks. And I think dairy gets blamed more often than it should for other kinds of food intolerances that are hard to figure out. So I stick with like Parmesan and cheddar and Gouda and like the really late stage kind of cheeses, and stay away from moldy, soft cheeses that are full of random. It's easy to become allergic to mold. So moldy cheeses I stay away from.
Well, in the last of my very limited time as a heavy meat eating diet, I've learned a lot about fat. Baby, I do good on fat. I tell you what, I've been just eating spoonfuls of tallow, beef tallow, grass-fed beef tallow, and my elimination easier, more often. It seems like, Mr. Colon likes the fat. Do we know what's going on there?
I have not studied that, but I've experienced that.
Have you? Yeah.
Yeah. Low fiber, high fat makes kind of constipation go away.
Yeah.
And that's one reason I like the pig face, because it's pure fat.
It's just pure fat. Yeah. We have a guest on that talks about ham hocks and pig's feet and all that. And she's really into the pig thing. She lives down in a doctor who lives in Panama. And boy, she recommends that for everything. Just, eat some ham hocks and, you'll be good.
Well, Central America is very good at sticking a pig on a spit and making happy parties and happy people.
Well, what happens when, like Patrick or someone, we just eat extra fat? Where does that go? What does it do? What does it do?
You need the energy. I think that we're actually haven't studied it in the right kind of way to understand it. We're going off of research that started in the late 1800s when we started to get the technique for measuring calories in food. Mm-hmm. Thinking it was a matter of numbers. Like there's an energy equivalent in each kind of food, and fat's got 9 calories per gram. And so it's got the most energy. So therefore it must be the most fattening. But that's a logical deduction, not a scientific observation.
Huh.
Different.
Yeah.
Our logic isn't playing out. If it were, we wouldn't have a society that was fat and diabetic and sick and on drugs.
No.
But
is it true then that the brain is using fat rather than sugar? Is that correct?
Ketone bodies are one of the preferred sources of energy, but the brain still needs you to have your blood sugar at the right level, not too low, not too high, just right. And that's why sometimes eating some carbs is okay, because your body might be struggling to keep your blood sugar where it should be, because your brain does need some sugar. I think it causes a certain degree of panic to the brain if your blood sugar is low, and that makes it hard to sleep.
If blood sugar is low.
Yeah.
What would be a
reason? Because the brain is thinking, oh my gosh, the blood sugar is low. You must need to go eat. You should get up and go hunting. Get out of bed right now. And it's hard to sleep when your brain's like, no, I need more sugar. Get up and get me some sugar.
Do we have an idea of what a reasonable or some kind of a goal on a fasting blood sugar, with the little blood test thing in the morning?
Yeah, well, we've always said in nutrition that your blood sugar when you're fasting should be around 80. Mm-hmm. And so if it's somewhere between, the high 70s down into the low 90s, that's considered pretty good.
Yeah, right around there. I've tested mine some mornings and it's a 40 or 50.
Yeah, so that's why you're needing the carbs.
So I should eat a few more carbs and get it up there.
At dinner.
At dinner. Oh, at night. Just add some.
Yeah, have it at night. And because what's happening is at night is when your body's doing all its healing and recovery work and helping to get rid of oxalates. And so it's using a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to clean oxalates out and do all that work. And you may be kind of burning out. You're having trouble keeping your blood sugar up.
Yeah. So, is it okay then to put? Did I hear somebody? I hope it wasn't you, because I won't listen to it if it is. But put butter on potatoes. It's okay, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good. Oh,
butter on everything. Butter on your knife. Butter on your fork. Butter on your fish.
I put butter on my steak. I eat butter with my steak. It's just whoa.
Yeah.
So maybe. Well, one of the reasons I went to a more meat diet, because when I ate carbs at night, I felt I didn't feel good after I ate them. I just an hour later I just lost it. I was worthless. I couldn't work on my writing projects. But when I do meat, it doesn't happen like that. But maybe it was because I was just doing the carbs and not the protein with it. Maybe.
Yeah, so there's different responses to the sugar in the diet, and one of them can be just a blood sugar problem where you're absorbing the sugar so quickly because the stomach doesn't hold the food if there's not protein and fat in the meal. So if you're eating a carb by itself, it just turns into hot sugar, rushes into the bloodstream. The body and the pancreas goes, oh, it's Thanksgiving. We got a giant meal. Let's crank out stuff. And so you put out too much insulin. And the response is the cells pick up all that sugar, and then there's nothing else behind it because it was a little blip. So you get a crash. So a blood sugar crash will crash.
That's what I was experiencing. Yeah,
That's probably it. And some people, their crash is more of an allergy crash to a food. And you can have a similar feeling like, oh man, I'm suddenly useless. And that isn't always a blood sugar crash. But with allergies, blood sugar can crash. So it could be both.
So if we want to have steak at night, then to have a few little red potatoes and some fat, even more fat, add some more tallow or something like that. And that'll help you.
That will help slow down those carbs so you can burn them evenly, and that'll help you keep your blood sugar even.
During the night. And that's why we wake up often is blood sugar is low.
Probably. Well, the other reason you'd wake up is because the oxalate crystals are filling up your bladder and your bladder can't take it. And if you're a nighttime trotter and need to pee more than once a night, you could be having high oxalates being excreted from the tissues at night.
Well, this has been great fun. Thank you for being here. So tell folks what's going on with this pre-order. What's the deal? So this is the name. This is a food. You can see it on the screen. Toxic Superfoods, Sally K. Norton. And what's going on with pre-order? How does that work?
Yeah, so you can order this book anywhere, any bookstore that you love, online sources. You can go to your local independent store, ask them to get it for you. You can order it straight from the publisher. This comes from Penguin Random House. Please order it before it's on the bookshelves, because you will get a free gift, which is about 10 recipes and an introduction to, eating and cooking low oxalate. And a little bit about, the book is a thank you for doing so. And what we're doing as a community is creating a bestseller when it comes out. So there'll be a little blip on Amazon and so on. It says, oh, Toxic Superfoods is an interesting book and an interesting topic. So that's the goal, is to just help more people discover this topic by pre-ordering it so we get on that little bestseller list. So
cool. And so people can pre-order anywhere, right?
Yeah, you can order it anywhere, and you'll be getting it at the same time as everybody else, and you won't be behind the times.
And how do they get the little free gifty thing with the recipes?
Yeah, important wrinkle. You got to come to my website, and I've got a tab on my website. It's sallyknorton.com. Look for the book tab. And there we're going to load. This isn't going to be available until around November 1st or so. Somewhere in early November, you'll be able to redeem your free gift. Right now, the publisher is going to make it look cute. So they're busy formatting it and everything. And then we're going to set up a link. So they'll be there. It's going to be setting up through the website so they can deal with the delivery so you can get it. But all you have to do is save your confirmation number or your receipt, and then you use that to get your free gift in November.
And do we want to order the book through your website or somewhere else?
You can order it through me because I'm not technically a retailer.
Okay.
Authors don't actually make any money on the book. It's the retailers that do. And it's embarrassing how much the author spends and doesn't make.
I know, all the time. Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation. So you can order from wherever, from the publisher, or, support your independent bookstore. Or if you order it from one of the major retailers online, that gives you a chance to do a review of the book and be part of the conversation. So that's that's a part of, I would love people to do reviews of the book, especially positive ones, so we can encourage other people to come learn about this topic.
And then maybe, you never know, Quentin Tarantino could buy the rights to your book and do a film. No, I'm just kidding. Toxic Superfoods.
It is actually a film-worthy topic. I think so. The history of the science is so cool. I love the old science. It's really interesting and clever.
I think, it'd be fun to do is a real drama and just create a couple characters of people, bad guys and good guys back in the 1800s. I'd love to write that one, where they're trying to sell you this and sell you that, and that'd be fun.
Well, there is a whole movie to be made about this, and let's do that on another show, because we could talk for half an hour about that movie, about the war on toxins and pharmaceuticals, and poor Golding Bird and how he ended up dying of oxalate poisoning at 39. There's a cool thing to do.
I'll talk to you about that someday, because that's what I want to do. In my next career is just write screenplays. I've written 3 of them, and I want to do it on really cool subjects. But I don't want to do documentaries. I want to do dramas with stories and create characters, and have the drama there. And that's what I want to do.
There's a really rich movie to make about this. The accidental poisonings from oxalic acid and other chemicals, and how the pharmaceutical industry fought the.
Oh, see there. Man, you got the drama,
how do we put a skull and crossbones or warn people don't eat these things? The pharmaceutical sellers didn't want to do that. So there's and it's cool outfits in the 1800s, right?
And all this stuff. Well, we'll do that someday, okay, baby? We'll do it, man. We'll just do it. We'll do it. It'll be fun.
I can't wait.
I can't wait. All right. Well, you're just a pleasure to talk to you. You're so much fun, and thank you for being here. All the best with your book, and we'll give it a plug from time to time. I've got this slide. So during the week, I'll just kind of plug it and tell folks to pre-order, okay?
That's lovely. And thank you for helping your listeners. It's awesome to be with you. It's fun.
It's great fun. All right, my dear, you take care of yourself. Stay out of trouble now.
You too.
Good luck with that. Thank you. Bye-bye. Sally K. Norton, thanks for coming on the show. Patrick Timpone, OneRadioNetwork.com. And why doesn't the slide work? Well, I'll make it work. I'll just force it. There it is. Okay. Well, no, none of it's working. What can I tell you? Okay, I'm going to take a little break here, and we will see you Friday morning and we'll continue our conversation about doing what you want to do and not what your little mind tells you to do, and so you can be happy. And I don't know what's going on, but there are big things in the works for geopolitics, financial world. There's a lot of stuff. So we got to stay strong, be strong, be able to do what we want to do and not what everybody's telling us to do. That's what we talk about on Fridays, and we talked about it today. So we will continue to talk about it on Friday. I love you all very much. Thank you. Good job. We will see you Friday morning. Take care. Let me know if there's something I can do for you.
Broadcasting from the beautiful Hill Country in Texas, this is OneRadioNetwork.com.